Welcome back. Let's now turn our attention to the issue of budget padding. The Minister of Finance and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, has refuted allegations of budget padding by some ministries, departments and agencies. She made the claims while appearing before the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations when she was invited to clarify the reason why unexplained monies were found in the 2023 budget of some ministries during their budget defense. The minister confirmed that a total of 1.7 trillion naira was included in the budget of some MDAs in the 2023 budget. She thereafter clarified that it was the amount of loan-tied projects our ministry decided to include in 14 implementing agencies to improve transparency. Responding to the allegations of padding, Ahmed explained that the federal government now domiciles project-tied loans in concerned MDAs. She added that the confusion was as a result of wrong labeling of the projects in the budget proposal. Anyways, joining me to discuss this further is the Deputy Director of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Sarah Kolawole Oluwadari. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Let me start by asking, what exactly do you make of this whole situation of budget padding and the minister coming to refute the claims that it was just a mistake on the part of the civil servants?
Thank you very much. This issue, we can bring out two different issues from these developments. One is that we still have a problem with our budgetary allocation process, or it might be a case of lack of transparency and accountability. But we cannot rush to conclude on the basis of this allegation that this is an indication of corruption. It might either be the budgeting process is not as effective as we think it is, or there are individuals or groups of individuals who might not be as transparent and accountable as we should be. But having said that, the allegations of budget padding, whatever that means in Nigeria, is not new. We've had it it comes up every election cycle, every budgetary cycle, pardon me. But it's important to say that no one is yet to be punished as it were, even though there's a lot of investigation for these kind of activities year in, year out.
Right, yeah. So, this situation might not be new when it comes to, is lawmakers padding the budget and all that. But this time, it kind of looks like it's the civil servants doing their thing. How would you react to that?
Ideally, that is why the appropriation bill comes before the National Assembly in the first place. They are to scrutinize each budget line per ministry, department, and agencies and ask questions as part of that accountability mechanism in the budgetary cycle. So finding things like these is not, I would not say is really out of place, because essentially that is why we are doing this in the first place. Otherwise, they are scrutinizing the appropriation bill to ensure, and they ask questions also to ensure that things that ought not to be do not find its way into the budget. But these coming from the ministry may sound somehow strange, but maybe we'll take the explanation of the minister for it. But much more importantly, if these kind of things are found at the stage of appropriation, what about at the stage of implementation and procurement? I really think that is where the main issue would lie, and that is what we should look at. Budget performance is not really as impressive as should be every year. But much more importantly, how do we ensure that monies are budgeted and released, and that if they are released at all, that they are used for the purposes for which they are meant for? So it brings up the issue. If this can happen at the level, at this stage, one wonders what will happen, or what is happening, or what has been happening really, or what will happen at the implementation stage. And that means that individuals and public institutions who have been tasked with ensuring transparency and accountability in the budget cycle, either at appropriation or at the expenditure stage, should really be up and doing to ensure that this is just 1 trillion. Maybe there is more that this doesn't happen, because ultimately Nigerians will pay the price if these funds are not spent the way they should.
The question played out like this: the fact that the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs told the lawmakers that she was not even aware about it, that the money was just inserted in our budget. And then the Minister of Finance said something like it was just wrong coding. That was where the mix-up came from. Don't you think that maybe looks like there is no synergy between these ministries and departments? It's just something like maybe they might have spoken about before. What do you have to say about that?
Really, the fact that this issue happened is a fact that is undeniable. But to describe the motive and the why it happened may be very hard to say, particularly when the individuals are at the center of these are said it is a mistake, which is why the National Assembly can ask for that question if they are not satisfied with the responses they've been given by the minister to ensure that there is no power play involved. But again, that may not necessarily mean that there is corruption involved. It may mean that we need to tweak our budgeting process. It means that we need to have more interministerial conversations and communication. That may just be it. But definitely, the National Assembly must get to the bottom of this. And if they are satisfied by the responses they've got, and really, the least they can do as representatives of the people is to scrutinize the budget better this time to ensure that this kind of thing, they call it a mistake, do not happen. And they need to be watchful too at the individual stage to ensure that no corruption passes the scrutiny.
Right, so one thing that struck me while the Minister of Finance was making our clarifications was when she said something about the money in question, especially in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. She mentioned something like it's the World Bank that's expected to fund that particular project, which means we're actually borrowing this over 200 billion naira from the World Bank to fund this project. It means more budget, more debt profile now to Nigeria's debt profile. What exactly are your thoughts on this?
We have been consistent in our advocacy against borrowing, particularly when the amounts that we borrowed or we have not been judiciously spent. Public officers are still earning security loans. Former governors and deputy governors are still earning pension. A lot of infractions are going on at the expenditure stage of the MDA. The Auditor General reports huge amounts of money year in, year out that have been missing or simply could not be accounted for. These are just some of the instances of lack of transparency and accountability. And one would think that with these kind of things that we see, much more attention will be paid to the budgetary process to ensure that these funds are judiciously spent. And we're talking about loans. And the issue is not really about whether we need a loan or not. The issue rests on the management of our funds. And if we have managed the funds that we made well over time, possibly we won't need to borrow funds. But really, that is not the issue. Whether the funds are borrowed or not, the fact remains that essential goods and services are beyond the reach of most Nigerians. And there is little transparency and accountability, if at all, in the management of our funds, whether they are borrowed or not. And sadly, and most unfortunately, our debt profile continues to grow. It's really not speaking well for governance and our various processes from budgeting to expenditure and the accountability cycle. And that is why we must be consistent in this advocacy to hold public officers to account, from the president, the council, and the local government, to be able to account for every naira, because we were put there to manage this fund on behalf of Nigeria.
Right, so we've heard both sides of the story, from the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and the Minister of Finance clarifying the situation, saying there's no budget padding anywhere. But do you think there's actually a way, or is there a way that we can actually ascertain that really there is no budget padding, or we just have to make do with the minister's speech?
There are ways, and that is why we have representatives at the National Assembly. Those in the National Assembly who are undertaking the scrutiny of the appropriation bill, they are elected by Nigerians, and they belong to various constituencies across Nigeria. And what I would expect Nigerians to do, those who belong to the constituencies of these members of the National Assembly, is to ask them questions and tell them, request them to do this and that, ask questions on this. Is what we expect you to do. That way, the National Assembly that has discovered this mistake can also, if they are satisfied with the response, can write it off. And if they are not satisfied, they have the right to proceed further. But what Nigerians can do, which is what we are doing with this conversation, is to continue to hold public officers to account. In this instance, Nigerians should ensure that those members of the National Assembly who are looking at the operation bill are made to answer to their consequences as to what they should do and what they shouldn't do, the questions they should ask and the questions they should not let go. And also, we need to hold those who have been appointed as ministers and various public institutions, those managing different public institutions accountable for this. That is what we can do as citizens. But much more importantly, the advocacy for transparency and accountability needs to continue. Much more critical, like the kind of discussion or conversation we have presently.
Well, Kolawole Oluwadare, the Deputy Director of SERAP, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and thank you for your insights. Well, that's how much we can take on the program for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.